What's going on, everyone? This is Stephen Place with Precision Volume Alerts, and welcome to Watchlist Wednesday for Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. I am recording this the day before, which is why it's going to say the 9th on a lot of screens, and, why the price action looks a little bit different. So welcome from the future. So we've been talking about a lot of different sectors: base metals, electric vehicle stocks, solar stocks. A lot of them have been running. We have been seeing extension with those names. And it's not because we're geniuses here. It's just that the overall market is very hot. The Russell 2000 broke out of an 8-month-long range. We were due. It was time. It's good. What we want to do now is try to identify the current winners of the market, to speculate on those rather than trying to force our way into broken momentum stocks. So let me give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about with these broken momentum names and how people are just fighting the trend on those, and how you can identify some of these new winners that will give you much cleaner continuation patterns and things like that to work with. So let's hop over to TradingView, and we're going to take a look at, for example, well, first off, here's the Russell. Right? Small caps broke out. This is about as clean of a breakout as you can get. So yes, we are seeing a little bit of a pullback right here, but overall, you can't bet against this right now unless you're trading on a very short term or you've got a layup short signal, because odds of continuation here are very strong. Until we see evidence to the contrary, we have to assume that the overall trend is going to go higher. Okay? That doesn't mean every single stock's going to go higher. Let's take a look at something like a Peloton. Peloton, back at the beginning of 2021, they pulled forward a lot of their earnings in the expectations of growth. The stock traded to 160. It had earnings 3 days ago, and it's almost it's a $40 stock now, right? And so if during the past 6 months you had tried to have this growth stock that pulled forward so much earnings to continue higher, it's been a hard play. Same kind of thing. Zoom is kind of like that. You could say Zillow's like that. So a lot of those names have sucked, right? And if you've been focused on those, if you've been anchored on those for the past few months, then you have missed out on opportunities in other names, okay? And I've suffered from this before. Like, I have, every once in a while, I just get hung up on a stock, either because it worked really well for me or because I missed out on a big move. And so anytime I run through my watch list, I just add that stock even though there's not an opportunity. And that is a mental waste, and it blocks you from getting new setups, basically. Okay, so what we're looking at today are things called post-earnings announcement drift stocks, PEAD stocks. Some people call these volatility pivots. Other people call them episodic pivots. Basically, we're looking for names that are seeing strong moves higher, usually on earnings. Because when you see a strong move higher on earnings, there is a repricing that happens in the market. And that repricing takes time. If an institution wants to go buy a stock because it had knockout numbers, they can't throw millions of dollars into the market at the same time because they're going to get terrible prices. So what will happen is that the stock will spike up, and anytime we see a small dip, these institutions will buy it because they want in. And that's how effectively a bull flag forms. That's how you get these consolidations. A good example of this recently is in Mongo database, MDB. Right? Look at this. Really nasty to the upside this time on the 7th of September. The stock traded from $400, gapped up on earnings, traded 460, ran to 500. And then it went sideways for a month. Once it broke out, it ran from 520 to 574. That's a 50-point hit on a stock, right? Now it is a $500 stock, but if you're using options, you can use leverage and you can get some monster returns out of these kinds of moves. Okay, so what we want to do is just say, what is the process that you need to develop to find these, to add them to your watch list so you can get continuation setups and bull flags and things like that. A couple different ways to play it. This is, for me, just what I've been doing. So this is on my trading platform, Thinkorswim. You can do FinViz, you can use Interactive Brokers, you can use TradeStation. There's a lot of screening software out there that can do this for you. And I know this is hard to read, but basically I'm looking at stocks with a share price over $30. I'm looking for a market cap over $1 billion. and I'm looking for an average volume of 500,000 shares. All right, so that's just kind of my basic list because I want larger prices for my options. I want pretty good liquidity, and I want a decent market cap so I don't, get anything out of left field in small cap land, like super small cap land. So those are the basic three for me in terms of just liquidity. The next two are the things that allow me to see explosive movement to the upside. So the first one is a Bollinger Band study, and a Bollinger Band is just it's what we call an adaptive volatility envelope. Basically, based off of past price movement, what is the first and standard deviation move that we should see? Okay. If we see a move above the upper Bollinger Band, it means relative to the past 20 days move, we have seen a 2 standard deviation move to the upside. Okay. Sometimes this can lead to an overbought stock seeing a sell-off, but if we're seeing it on volume and if we're seeing it with some kind of a catalyst, some kind of news event, usually earnings, that tends to lead to continuation. All right, so the third, 1, 2, 3, the fifth, we're on the fifth one now. We're looking at R-vol, and we want to see R-vol greater than 3. And what R-vol shows me is basically the relative volume. All right, and this is a custom study, but there's a lot of them out there that you can get access to. Basically what it does is it says, you can look at the code if you want and really nerd out and say, okay, what's the 50-day average volume? What's the current volume for the day? Because if we see a volume spike, that's telling us something, right? So we want to look for a high R-vol. So I've already run the scan for today, and I have it sorted by volume. And we can also see on the left, I know it's kind of hard to see, but those little dots right there, you have a blue and a red dot. One of them is a light bulb. The one on the right is a little telephone for a conference call. Those are the stocks that had earnings. So just off the top, because I know these names already, Roblox, Quantum, Trade Desk, Blink, and Newer are all on my watch list now. And Xilinx is going to be there as well. I'm not sure what happened there, but it is seeing some movement. So that's a fancy way. I'm using volatility and volume because that's what I like to use. That's what we use in our roadmap inside of PVA. And if you do want to learn about that, there's a webinar that'll take you to our free training for that. A lot of people just use over 4% on volume or things like that that can get you there. So what we can do is just say, all right, this is our watch list now. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these names. First up is Roblox. Roblox is a toy company, but it's also a crypto company and it's an NFT company. So there's a lot of things going on in that space. It's a recent IPO from April. It's seeing a monster move today, trading $107 from yesterday's close at about 76. So that's a nice little 30% move on earnings. Odds are we're going to see continuation. This stock is in play. If you're a day trader, you should be day trading this. If you're a swing trader, you should be looking for good quality entries for continuation right here. Quantum's on the list, but it wasn't earnings. This is just a parabolic move. I actually played this to the upside. I took my profits yesterday, which means I am going to miss out on a lot of upside. That's just how it's going to play out, right? I'm saying, okay, we're coming into previous resistance or previous support potential resistance at 41.25. So obviously that's a good place to take profits, which means we're going to be at $80 tomorrow. So that's just that's how my life has been with some of these former momentum runners, where I get a decent chunk and then the sucker just runs another 30 to 50 points on a convexity squeeze. So that one I would avoid in terms of what we're looking for, because we're not just looking for stocks that are going up. We're looking for stocks that are going up based off of events and ideally gaps higher. So next one's Trade Desk, TTD. This one had a nice breakout on earnings 2 days ago, and we're now seeing a follow-through day. All right, this is how a second day play can come into play, which is great if you are swing trading or if you're day trading very aggressively. So again, we want to look for something like we saw in Mongo, right? MDB, where you get some kind of a consolidative pattern, maybe a little bit of a shakeout, and then that continuation is how you can get some really nice profits. So it's absolutely on my list right now. The other thing, just as an aside, is if you start seeing a lot of these volatility pivots happen and cluster in the same areas, then that's probably what you want to focus on over the next quarter. So I know that TTD has run, I know Mongo's run, I know a lot of software as a service stocks have been on fire recently. So enterprise software and application software is a sector that you absolutely must follow if you're trading right now. Okay, that's kind of how I develop my watch list, where I say, okay, what's moving right now and do they have a theme? And I don't necessarily have to trade them same day, but it gives me a good cohesive thesis to work with just off the technicals in the market. Next one's Blink. BLNK. This had an earnings event yesterday, and this is the problem with some of the electric vehicle stocks. You just get these nasty rug pulls to the downside. Obviously, Tesla today isn't helping as it's gone down 100 points or something along those lines. But Blink did see a hard reversal. Why did it see a hard reversal? Well, it was coming into some pretty key areas in a low volume node right into about $42 a share. For these episodic pivots, these volatility pivots, ideally you want to see a break to new highs or something where there isn't supply from previous buyers who have been holding the bag who just want to get out at break even. All right, so we want to kind of avoid that. Another one, newer, and this is not a name on my list, but it is now. So I'm going to have to dive into this a little bit more, see what the overall narrative is. That's probably due for a second day play tomorrow. And then you want to look for some kind of consolidation and go buy some calls from there. Some other ones on the list, just really quick, is Expedia. Expedia looks really good right here for some kind of a flag pattern. You want to identify where institutions are most likely to pick up these shares. You can absolutely do this with the roadmap that we provide with our service inside of PVA. And then Xilinx, just because it's on the list, that's a touch overbought, and that's just a semiconductor stock that's been running a lot. So you've got Xilinx, you got Nvidia, you got AMD. Those kind of have been on a massive tear. So that's not necessarily anything related to an individual stock. It has to do with an overall sector bet. So you can take that and you say, okay, we got to start looking at some semiconductor stocks, right? Nvidia obviously is extended, so is AMD. But if you get some kind of, again, consolidation and continuation in the context of a longer term uptrend, that's where your massive profits are going to lie. Okay. So those are the setups we're looking at. Again, it's not necessarily around any individual sector. It is more how you develop these watch lists and what kinds of things you should start looking for. So we looked at Roblox, Quantum. Quantum's not really on the list. Trade Desk, newer, and those are the big three right now. And that's just today, right? This is just from one scan. A lot of these will pop up on the same scan tomorrow, but then some new ones will show up. So you absolutely need a process to identify some of these names, or you can let me do all the work for you inside of Precision Volume Alerts. I would highly recommend joining and getting the training first. So what you need to do is below this video is going to be a link that will get you access to the webinar. You can see how we trade, what we look for, how to identify these things, how to structure our risk with options to get massive, massive upside. We've been on a pretty good run. We played Lucid from $26. We've had on semiconductor on. It's currently up 51% on the stock, not the option. We've been playing lithium and a lot of these other electric vehicle stocks. You know, we talked about these about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and a lot of them have been popping off. So you absolutely should get access to PVA and become a client, because this is what I do all day, and I want to help you generate aggressive and sustainable wealth in the options market. So click the link below, get trained up, see how we approach the market, and then you can become a member of PVA there. That's all I got for now. Take care. Have a great day.